Welcome to the highly anticipated third season of the Single Dads Unplugged, where we embark on the profound exploration of the unique challenges and triumphs faced by single fathers. This season, we delve deep into the realm of emotional resilience, unraveling the layers of strength that single dads exhibit as they navigate the complexities of parenthood on their own, from coping with the emotional rollercoaster of solo parenting to finding solace in unexpected places. Our episodes aim to inspire and empower single fathers on their journey. In Season 3, our focus extends beyond the individual, shining a spotlight on the invaluable bonds forged between single dads and their children. We bring you heartfelt stories of connection and growth, showcasing the remarkable ways in which these fathers nurture and strengthen the familial ties that define their lives. Moreover, we address the crucial intersection of financial and emotional well-being, offering practical insights and advice to help single dads not only survive, but thrive in their role as primary caregivers. As we navigate the intricate landscape of co-parenting challenges, our aim is to provide a supportive space for single fathers to share experiences and glean wisdom, fostering a sense of community and resilience in the face of adversity.
Welcome to the Single Dads Unplugged Season 3, I beg your pardon, and this is your host, Tembisa Phakathi. We are all about building bonds between fathers and kids, and also empowering fathers, single fathers particularly, be better dads to their kids. And at this time, I would like to welcome Jabu Zwane. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm good on you, Stay.
You made it. You didn't even get time to breathe, right?
I see. We're here.
And then the team just got you to the desk and then without even having water. Thank you, my friend, and I really appreciate your time. Maybe tell us a little bit about, you've got so many roles, and you and I have been on this journey for a little while now. You were part of Season 2. I appreciate your contribution to that round table that we had. Maybe tell the audience and our viewers a little bit about what you're all about professionally, and maybe your little history as a dad as well. And then we're going to delve into some of the key discussions later, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I am a father and a husband, as you've mentioned, but I'm also a mindset development specialist. I work with companies through my institute called the Mindset Development Institute. We work on leadership, on entrepreneurship, effective communication, emotional intelligence, and also quite a bit of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh, DI.
Yeah, and quite a bit of the work that I do in my own personal capacity is also in family counseling and marriage counseling.
That's great. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned DI because it's one of my favorite topics on my other job that I do when I'm not talking single dads. Let's talk a little bit about fatherhood. You've been in a situation where you moved from one marriage to the next, and you had kids in that marriage as well, and now you're raising and cooperating with the ex as an example. How has that been for you? Any lessons that you want to share with our other single dads or fathers out there?
Yeah. Well, let me just quickly do a little bit of adjustment in terms of the information you've given.
Oh, okay.
My first wife passed away.
Oh, dear. Oh, by the way,
so
I remember
there's no ex involved.
Oh, there's no ex involved. Okay.
Yeah, and also my current wife's husband also passed away.
Oh, okay.
So neither one of us have
Sorry
any
about
exes
that,
involved.
yeah.
No, it's totally okay. I mean, you deal with a lot of single dads with similar type of environment. I mean, it's difficult. It's always very challenging to try and bring two families together with a history that's already existing of parenting.
Yeah.
One of the things that you have as a challenge is, of course, the issue of principles and values, and the fact that both of you are approaching parenting from a different angle, and to try and find that middle ground that works for both of you.
That works for both of you.
Yeah, and also to respect certain boundaries that are there, especially when the child is not your biological child, without being too feeling insecure about it, or feeling as if it diminishes your role as a parent.
As a parent, I'm glad you mentioned boundaries because yesterday I was talking to two psychologists, and and particularly educational psychologists for kids. And they were saying that part of communication or setting these parental plans involves understanding those boundaries. But how has that worked for you, and how has that impacted the lives of the kids that are involved in that parenting setup?
I mean, the way I think it's an ongoing process of discovery.
Yeah.
I find that you need to be compassionately curious about what works and what does not, especially when you get a situation where you're feeling a bit triggered or feeling like you're being undermined or being disrespected.
Yes.
And you kind of want to have a bigger say, on someone else's child, purely because you're involved in some capacity as a parent. I think it's a question of humility, and it's a question of understanding that you've got to explore what's possible and what is not possible.
What is not possible, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, like I said, for me, it's a huge part of that is respecting the reality that my child is my child ultimately.
Yeah.
Yes, we came together because of romantic interest.
Yeah.
And there might be something that we're trying to build together as a family. And of course, nobody gets married with the intention to get divorced.
To get separated.
Separated at the end of the day. But the possibility that you might find yourself not together at some point in the future is there.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have a situation where you're so completely mingled up together that when that happens, then it creates an element of difficulty that should not have been part of the equation in the first place.
I'm going to come to the emotional resilience and maybe the teachings and around mindset, but I want to go back to this transition from that relationship, especially for the kids.
Yeah.
How did they transition into a situation they have to learn to work or live with someone else, having been born by the previous mom, and what was your role in facilitating that transition?
Look, I mean, it was definitely challenging. Thankfully for me, at the time that my first wife passed away, my eldest son was 9.
Okay.
My youngest son was 6, and my daughter was 7. And so they were still at least in that impressionable age.
Yeah.
A lot more still.
Very tender age.
Tender age, still trying to discover.
Yeah.
The first thing that I needed to do was to create as much stability as I possibly could.
Sure.
And of course, taking them through for counseling and therapy, that was quite crucial as well. But I mean, throughout the process, I find that it was important to keep the children updated. I think one of the injustices that we do as parents is that because we have a certain level of understanding difficulty, we think children have the same. Children don't have.
No, they don't.
They don't look at difficulty the way that we do. And then we're thinking that we need to protect their fragile minds because based on how we understand pain to be. And then we withhold information, which is crucial for them to actually could begin to form their own way of thinking.
Their own way of thinking, yeah.
And then as they grow up, then there are gaps in understanding. They can see that something has changed. They can't really quite put their finger on it. And until you describe it, until you give it a meaning or you give it a title as a parent, then you're leaving your child in that, I would say, intellectual gap.
Yeah.
And which then makes them...
And it's hard to close that.
Yeah.
And you're raising boy kids, and you and I were talking about this the other day, how boys tend to emulate dads.
Yeah.
And if you're not present in their lives and do not do things that really touch the core of their emotional being, it becomes a problem. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about communication and creating a tradition or a rhythm where you tend to communicate, create those bonds with the kids. And are there tips that you want to share with our viewers around those little things that are practical that you can do with the kids just to create that bond, that connection on an ongoing basis?
Yeah. I would say it's important to have a mindset of understanding that your kids are interested in you and not your things.
Not your stuff.
Not
I like
your stuff.
That.
Not your money, not the fun things that you think you can.
Just your attention.
Just your attention. I mean, I think one of the, I quickly want to share a quick story. It's a movie that most of you probably have watched.
Yeah.
The Pursuit of Happiness.
Yes.
All right. Now, Mr. Gardner, when they were interviewing interviewing his son, and they were asking him, how did you feel when your father was dragging you across all these places, running around? And the son was like, I don't remember it being hard. I remember it being adventurous.
Adventurous.
I thought we were having fun running through the streets of New York and going sleeping in different places.
Yes.
All I
The
remember is that I
shelters.
was with my dad and we were having fun together. And then I think that's the thing that I want to say with a lot of dads is that just because you're not where you're supposed to be financially, or that you don't even have the fancy house that you think you should have, doesn't mean that your child is looking for that.
Yeah.
You desire to give that to a child, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But the moment that it starts to restrict your ability then to be emotionally available to your child,
Yeah.
then it has become something that is dysfunctional and unhelpful to the growth of your child.
And the development of their
And the
of their
development
resilience.
of their child and their confidence. I mean, the confidence that a child needs to have to be able to solve problems, to tackle struggles,
Yeah.
and to just really, tackle life in general and whatever variables of complexity that are part of their lives.
Yeah.
And it's important, I'd say, to spend meaningful time. It's not about the amount of time you spend with your child.
Mm.
And the things that, I mean, I'm sure you've noticed this, as soon as you spend like 30 minutes and your child is satisfied, they don't have time for you.
Yeah.
They go and do their thing.
They'll go and do it, but it's meaningful, and it's the quality of that time
Absolutely.
that you spend. Someone said yesterday to me that it's important that it's not about the length of the time you spend with them, but what it is that you're doing with them while they're together. And by the way, do you really give them full attention while they're there?
Exactly. I think about that a lot. But thankfully for me, I got an opportunity where my boys go to boarding school.
Sure.
And it's a bit far. So whenever I travel with them, I take an opportunity to ask them questions.
Okay.
And I think it's one of the tips I'll give you as a parent is that learn to ask curious questions about your child. Not to question them. Ask them what they like. Ask them where they want to go. If they
Yeah.
had what is their dream destination? What is their dream holiday destination?
Yeah.
What car do they like? What are some of the
Yeah.
things that you as a child used to think about? You almost have to take yourself back to being a little boy or little girl and think about what were some of the things that were fascinating to you as a point of
And
curiosity.
then start opening up as well.
That will help you to really have an amazing conversation and discover things about your children that you never knew were possible
Yeah.
before,
Yeah, that's powerful. In the previous episode with Mto, we were talking about how these kinds of activities, connections, can actually create or build trust between you and your kids.
Yeah.
You want to comment on that? Are they able to come to you about anything at this stage of their lives because there is that trust?
I believe that there was a point where it was hard for them to do that.
Okay.
And that was because of I had to be a parent. I had to be a parent of occupy two roles of parenting,
Sure.
along with having to start over and all the dynamics of having to grieve. So it was hard, and there was a time where I was a little bit more short. But then there was a point where I actually noted that I remember this thought. It shocked me and it terrified me to think that one of my kids would need me the most and have difficulty coming to me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I started doing actually was, again, asking questions about what they like. They like rap. Great. Found out that on YouTube you can do this beats and stuff like that. I used to like rap growing up.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, guys, let's do some rap battles in the car.
In the car.
So let's see who can come up with, with the most creative things and go and drop the bars. And of course, Daddy dropped some bars on them.
That was great. Yeah.
And of course, like, oh, cool, Daddy. And that's another thing. Also, you want your kids to think, my goodness, this brother is cool.
And
you
it
want
does
them to
too.
like you and love you at the same time.
Yeah.
And that kind of helps.
I always say to people that what's nice about my own situation is that I'm growing up with my kids. So they happen to be born when I was young. So the age difference is not that big. So they're able to talk to me about anything, relationships, what they like to do and what they want to do professionally, which is nice. But I haven't thought about doing that with them, whether we're traveling or whether what I do know is that when we travel, we try to put phones away and then we engage in activities that make us forget about our gadgets.
Yeah.
Do you engage in those kinds of things?
We
with
do.
your
We
boys?
play a lot of games. We do memory games. There was another one that they used to do, dips. Dipsing is about dipsing on the car.
Yeah.
Whenever the car that comes, dibs on that Range Rover,
Yeah.
And then I introduced in that whole game the whole thing of teasing. You tease them by dipsing them with a really ugly car. And then one that gets the ugliest car loses the game. So it's like one of those things that you...
I've never thought of it.
I mean, the thing about it is that I think one of the things we lose when we get older because things get tough is that we lose our curiosity.
Yeah.
You lose, and if you don't have curiosity, you sort of like limit your ability to have fun.
Yes.
And sometimes you got to just realize that, what hard as things are, it's not a sin to laugh. I say this to my friends all the time. Listen, I know things are hard, but if something is funny, give yourself permission to get on the floor
Because
and laugh like there's
that
no
creates
tomorrow.
memories. Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing stopping you from that. But to sit there and to wallow in your misery and all the details that have to do with co-parenting
That saps your
and what
energy.
is happening with your ex, that is not a helpful situation at all.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what you want to do is that you want to create as much of a nurturing and easy environment as you possibly can. And you must understand that as the most important person at the top of the hierarchy of influence in your sphere, you determine whether that's going to happen or not. Kids are
Yeah.
watching you, just looking at your countenance.
Because
and
they
your
want you
face.
to lead and they want to make. Actually, Mto was saying the same thing, that they look up to you as a leader, but also a protector, because they're vulnerable, especially at that teenage age.
Absolutely. But they also look at you in terms of their emotional framework.
Okay.
If you, whenever you're going through a hard time, you're angry and you are short, that's what they're learning from you.
Yeah.
Because remember, all of us as human beings, we are learning more passively than we are actively involved in the process of learning.
Yeah. It's very
Most of
passive.
the things you've learned, you don't even know that you've picked up.
Yeah.
Much more so for kids, because at that time, there is this gap in their brains where information has to populate to build their own knowledge
To
pool.
be their own knowledge pool.
So
yeah.
the more your emotional traits are going to be part of who they are for a long time to come.
Yeah.
And what you don't want to do is that you don't want to be so unaware of your emotional traits that are not helpful for peace and for conflict resolution and for handling struggles. Because ultimately, when they get married, that's the man that you have produced.
You've produced that man, and you've actually groomed that man.
Yes.
And when I was invited to speak to about 35 kids at Kids Haven, I think this was in October last year, I touched on this because, in fact, we've got a CEO from Kids Haven coming to talk to us tomorrow about that. Because those kids are basically saying, we don't know our parents, we don't know where we come from, but we believe someone out there could be our father figure, and we want to learn from them. But I want to ask you this, how would you advise other single parents out there to create an environment where it's easy for them to build bonds, and what strategies would you suggest they utilize, of course with limited resources, that are just practical, including but not limited to activities, excursions, games. Are there practical things that they could also consider as part of creating those bonds?
I would strongly warn again, especially for single dads, stop making everything with your kids about money.
Okay.
Stop making it about money. Kids are looking for connecting with you. They want to know who you are, and they want to know what you think about them. The biggest challenge with a lot of kids that are raised by single parents, because of all the work that you have to do, and not having enough work because you're having to work and you're having to do, again, fulfill the role of two parents all at once.
Yeah.
We missed out on those stages. Talk to your kids. Help
Find
your
out
kids.
what's in their minds.
Think about this. You and I right now, we are having a conversation, but part of what we're doing is that we are actually testing and validating our ideas.
Sure.
And when your kids get to hear what you think about certain things, it's almost like it orders their own thinking. So the more that you don't talk to them, the more gaps they have in their own thoughts.
I'm with you.
And if there's a gap or a hole, it needs to be fulfilled. And that's why they're going to go somewhere else to go look for that. That's why they're going to go out there and go look for, if it's a girl, for example, they'll go look for a father elsewhere.
Yeah, elsewhere.
Or even a young boy, then they'll go look for a mother elsewhere.
Yeah.
So have a conversation with your kids. I'm a firm believer in the fact that I have to teach my kids how to be articulate, to communicate their thoughts very well, because the study also was done in the USA about the juvenile delinquents and those who are in jail. And what they noted is that among the teenage boys, one of the number one reasons why they become violent and they go to jail is poor linguistic development. It's poor linguistic development. If you are unable to sort out the mess that's in your head in words,
And the clutter.
it gets frustrating,
Yes.
and then they express that in a bit of in a more violent form.
Yeah.
But when kids become very articulate through the time of hardship, watch how linguistically powerful they become in the humanities.
Because it does develop.
In the humanities, for example, in psychology, even in poetry, the guys who write the most incredible books and come up with the most incredible solutions for human beings, most of them have gone through a hard time.
Yeah.
And the reason why they could do that is because of they are able to articulate the mess that most people are unable to articulate.
And it eliminates a lot of clutter. I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Our slogan, as you can see in all our information in our socials, is building bonds, breaking stereotypes.
Yeah.
What type of stigmas or stereotypes that you think through this network, or even with your events that you run, we should consider breaking or making sure we raise awareness?
Yeah.
Before you answer, yesterday someone said to me, there's a stereotype out there that men do not have inherent ability to raise and nurture kids.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore courts during breakups or divorce proceedings, they default to mothers
yes.
for custody and parenting. What is it that we can do to break the cycle?
I'll say, one of the stereotypes is exactly what you've mentioned now. The reality is that being a counselor, I've noticed that there are certain women who have absolutely no interest in being parents.
Okay.
They're not maternal. In fact, some of them are quite unhappy that they became parents and they were forced
But
in a
they're
way
forced,
to become mothers. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And on the other hand, there are certain dads. Someone like myself, in both my marriages, I'm the one that's far more involved in the kids.
Wow.
I'm the one that knows the sicknesses that they've
You know
got,
the
takes them to the
details.
doctors,
Yeah.
takes them to school. And then another stereotype is that you get to the school events, and then at the school event, there are a couple of us who are fathers there with our kids, but they keep on talking to the mothers. Thank you for being here, mummies.
But
I'm
the
like,
father is,
hello.
it's just a father. Yeah.
I'm here, and there continues to
So
be.
it's a societal kind of.
It's a societal problem that
yeah.
is not integrating the change that has happened, that they fought for, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's already happening, but it's almost like there's a delay in acknowledging and recognizing that this is what's happening. I was doing a video the other day at a school function. It was a sports school function, and I looked around, and I swear there were probably 70% of fathers that were there.
70%.
70% were men that were there.
That's beginning to change.
You know,
Yeah.
things have changed, not beginning.
Yeah, that's
For
good.
me, I see that quite a lot. Things have changed.
Wow.
Now, is there a significant number of fathers that are absent? Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's there. But has it changed significantly that fathers are present?
Are getting involved.
And
yeah.
they're learning to become a bit more nurturing and more
Yeah.
softer.
Mhm.
Because I must say, on my part, I needed to be softer when my first wife passed away.
Okay.
Because I realized that these guys are not going to have somebody who's going to wipe their teeth with that soft
Sure.
hand anymore. And this one is a bit rough and scratch their face at
You're
times.
learning
right?
new skills. Yeah.
You know, I needed to learn how to be a little bit softer. One of
Yeah.
the things that I realized is that I need to stop yelling.
Okay.
And
Shouting at them.
Yeah, I need to shout. In fact, it was
Yeah.
my second wife that like, dude, why do you have to yell at them all the time? And I was sitting there like a blank face, blank look on my face, like I don't know.
Wow.
And I need to say, but why? And I realized that I learned that growing up. And one of the reasons why, especially with let's talk a little bit about psychosocial history here.
Sure.
One of the reasons why African parents, especially like single mothers, used to yell at the kids was the amount of kids that they had and how much time, the chaos that kids create, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So you realize that you say to a child, do this one time, do this second time, do this third time. They're still not doing it. And at some point, only when you yell, they get it done. But what happens if it's 5 kids and there's nobody there to help you?
Yeah.
So you develop a culture of yelling. So the yelling was was more about, listen, we need to curb the chaos because before things go crazy.
Destroys the child.
But
yeah.
now that there's a degree of, equitable distribution in terms of parental responsibilities, or at least we don't have as many kids as we used to anymore, there's no need for us to be yelling and screaming at
No,
kids
there isn't.
anymore, because it does. One study showed that actually yelling and screaming at kids in that way almost has the same impact as physical abuse.
Yes, physical abuse. I was about to go there.
Psychologically, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I want us to turn our attention to the work you do around mindset and
Yeah.
helping parents, fathers particularly, shift mindset around parenting. What have you seen in your profession around the things that most fathers grapple with just by dealing and working on themselves before they can hope to change anybody else?
I've seen that a lot of parents are actually parenting the young selves.
The young selves. I like that.
Yeah, they literally are. They literally are not that. They're parenting. Either they're dealing with their traumas, by trying to make sure that their kids don't go through what they went through, or they're parenting as kids themselves, not having dealt with their own trauma. They still are, they still have emotional outbursts. They still are doing the some of the emotional tendencies of stonewalling, of threatening kids if they don't do what they're supposed to do, and the whole punishment and vengefulness type of way of parenting. Because unless you get to a point where you consciously begin to change the things that you don't agree with, all you are left with is what you know.
Okay.
So as much as you don't want to yell at your kids, if yelling at your kids is the only thing that you know that works, you'll continue that behavior even if you don't like it.
Yeah.
Or even if it was...
It's almost perpetual.
It's a perpetual. Even also if it was a corporal punishment. If that's the only thing that you're going to continue to administer discipline in that manner,
tendency, yes.
until you learn a different way of disciplining, a different way of parenting. And one of the things that I think that many of us parents need to realize is that our kids are not us. They didn't grow up under the same dynamics as we did, especially if it happens to be that there was a traumatic upbringing of poverty, of abuse, of psychological, abuse and all of that, that that's not good. Now you need to learn what is good.
Yeah.
Not just, this is not good, but actually what is good. And it is that thing that is good that is going to replace the not good that you don't want.
That you don't want. And move away from it.
And move away from it. And understand that when you start to learn how to be a parent at a much older stage, again, you're like a child.
Yeah.
And then it's important, connect with the Single Dads Network. Come and get practical information on how to become a dad, how to deal with the complexities that are part of that process.
Because it's quite complex, and
very
nobody
complex,
has the answer. Someone was saying to me also, and I'm thinking about this because it applies to me personally. I was raised from a big family. I mean, I think you know my story.
Yeah.
I'm the last born in a family of 10, 6 boys, 4 girls. I was never raised by my parents, although I had 2 parents. I was raised by my siblings. There's no way a father or a mother of 10 kids is going to pay attention to all of them, all of them at the same time. So I really was raised by my siblings. I want to ask you this: how is culture, or maybe the traditions, impacting on how we raise our kids? Maybe the things that we're exposed to in our own families, passing them on to our kids. I want to tell a quick story. My father would tell us as boys, you never wear a hat in the house during those times. I'm sure you know those kinds of things. Whether it's a culture or some kind of belief, we don't know. We never ask questions why, until I got my own son. And then I told him, you can't wear a hat in the house. And I thought the conversation was done.
Yeah.
And then, but he turned around, he followed me because I was walking out. And he followed me and asked, but why? And I said, because I say so. And he was not satisfied. Yeah. And he asked again, but I need to understand why I can't wear a hat in the house. I'm going to say this, then obviously I insisted that it's not right to wear it. But I could see that he was still disturbed because he wanted to know the reason. Now, how do those kinds of things and beliefs make us raise kids the way we were raised? Yeah.
They absolutely influence the way we raise kids. I think about it this way from the point of how mindsets build, which I often describe as structured categories of thinking that lead to an outcome, whether you're aware of it or not. That your brain is built in structures of information that get compartmentalized, and then the impact, the decisions you make, and the things you think, and the attitudes, and all of that, right? So when you are young, at a young age, you don't have, first of all, the intellectual ability to assess, to validate information. So you work a lot on trust of the people who are your greatest source of influence. What I term the true source of influence. That's where you learn from. They've gone before that, and that's why you take what your parents tell you. But it becomes a very dangerous thing when a parent does not understand that they are responsible for full explanations with kids. That when your child asks you a question, it's not a sign of respect. My thing was the issue of questions. because I was never allowed to ask questions.
Oh, really? To your dad, you mean?
To anybody that was older than me when I was growing up. My dad
okay.
wasn't around, my mother was not around, so
You can never
but
ask
my grandfather was there, and nobody asked grandfather any questions.
Yeah.
And so you develop this mindset of being uncomfortable with questions from a younger people, you know, and it's always perceived as not as an exercise of curiosity, you know, and we don't honor the integrity of having to answer the question to fulfill that information that's missing, right?
Sure.
Instead, we're questioning and we start to allocate judgments and say, you don't listen, you're disrespectful.
Yeah.
And there's a point where you learn as a child that asking questions actually is a dangerous thing for you to do
Yeah.
because you're going to be mislabeled a certain way. So when my kids started asking me a lot of questions, I was uncomfortable.
It makes you uncomfortable.
It made me feel
because
uncomfortable.
you're not used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, but why am I uncomfortable? And I needed to figure out, this is why I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, to reflect.
And to reflect and say, but why are they asking the questions? People ask questions, all things considered, and assuming no guilt and assuming no malice. People are asking questions.
And it's a different generation, and it can't be the same as us or as our generation.
Absolutely. But in the bigger scheme of things, in terms of just purely forget the generations, human beings ask questions when there's missing information.
And it's good when if they're curious.
It's good for them to be curious. And so
Yeah.
when a child asks you a question,
They're looking for information.
they're looking for information. And if you don't give them that information, they're going to go and find it somewhere
No,
else.
they'll go somewhere else.
And if it's crucial information that can determine important decisions in their lives, are you really sure that you want to leave that to a stranger?
Yeah. We're going to go towards the last part of our conversation. We were talking last night, Sydney and I, at my house around what can this network do to influence the boys that are becoming future dads. You know, this network addresses a lot of challenges with dads or some of the dads that are already dads. But there's a host of young men that are not having the right information about fatherhood. What can you, in your profession and maybe through this network, do to maybe reach out or design programs for young boys to make them understand stuff about parenting, fatherhood, and the pitfalls of fatherlessness, especially those young boys that are growing on their own without a father figure?
I'm a firm believer in the fact that it's more important for human beings to learn how to be human.
Okay.
And I think when you learn how to be human, it becomes a lot easier then to correctly align with the various components of what that is.
Yeah.
So if you grew up without a father, then you can't understand what does a child who has no father need. So as much as sometimes it is great for us to have these types of programs,
Sure.
I think there's a risk of over categorizing what we're dealing with and then dehumanizing it in the process.
Okay.
Because
Without even being aware.
without being aware,
Yeah.
and then because now we're dealing more on the legal issues and the issues with the baby mamas or whatever the case might be, and as opposed to just thinking about it from the point of, but what is a human being who is struggling with what they can't figure out? How do they feel? And how should they handle that? So I'd say, for me, there are 5 crucial things that we need. Emotional intelligence. I think
Yeah.
it's a crucial thing that has to be part of every segment of society.
Sure.
We have to teach emotional intelligence. The second one is I've spoken about. We have to teach people how to communicate. Because communication is crucial for psychological well-being, but also for just in general, even your emotional regulation. If whatever you're going through has words, you have a way then of being able to put a meaning and sort of knowing how to react.
It has impact.
Because it has a definition. And with the definition, they can come up with a way of handling that.
Sure.
The third one is that we need to teach our children and ourselves as parents self-leadership.
Okay.
Self-leadership is about accountability, about self-discipline, about understanding sometimes when you've got to do what you've got to do, there's nothing negative about it. Yes, it's uncomfortable that you're going to provide for your kids alone by yourself,
Yeah.
but it is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And that you have to have emphasize the goodness of having to provide for your kids more than being outweighed by the grief you're feeling
By the grief and
by
the
the other
stuff.
parent that is not giving what it's supposed to
Exactly.
do. Do you know what I mean? And then the third thing that I would say, or the fourth thing, I spoke about the fourth thing that I would say is that critical thinking skills,
Okay. What is that?
which is mainly about the right way of relating with life based on how life is, not how you wish life to be. That involves
Based on not how you see it,
not
but
how you
it
see
is,
it and how you wish for it to be.
but how it is.
Sometimes you can understand that, you know what, I'm looking at you from the front. You can't see what's behind you. So if I say to you, there's something behind you, it's reasonable for you to consider that it might be there and not say, because I can't see it, it's not there.
It's not there.
That's what critical thinking skills are, is that there are certain things that you don't know. Outside of what you don't know, or what you know, there's a lot that you don't know. And
It's
orient
about
your
being
mind.
open-minded.
That's the thing about it. And so problem-solving skills. Do you know how to ask the right questions? And part of that also is being able to ask for help. It's also part of problem solving. But asking for help is not being dependent on help. It's not being helpless and being a victim.
But also know when you need help. Because in this network, you know this, that we've been pushing for this idea that it's okay for some dads not to have answers. And this network doesn't have all the answers either. But we're creating a community, a platform where we can share ideas, we share books, we share articles, we leverage on professionals like yourself to share information. I think I'm glad you're mentioning that, because I think the first start for a dad is to acknowledge that I may not have all information around parenting or around fatherhood, but where do I go? There was a lady that sat in that chair yesterday. She's a lawyer, and she said, many single dads come to her office and say, I'm stuck. I'm not allowed to see my child because I don't pay maintenance. How can you assist, as an example? And then she spoke about family advocates and those kinds of routes and drawing up family or parenting plans. So I'm thinking that it's okay to be vulnerable, come to this network and find information. In fact, on our website, we even say, if you come to us, we don't have answers and we can't connect you to the right person, we will find that person for you so that you get help. The last thing that I want to touch on now is around financial well-being.
Yeah.
The same lady said, number one reason why divorces happen is because of disagreements on finances and the challenges around those things.
Yeah.
I'm a single dad, I've never been married, but I do have difficult conversations with my co-parents around finances. How do we educate society to create an environment where those things are brought to the open, and the earlier you actually discuss finances with your co-parent, the earlier, and then you tackle those issues head on? Is there something we could be doing or we should do to create that awareness, financial well-being?
I mean, we should definitely. I've just done a research with my institute now, where we looked at, for example, the rand buying power for the last 20 years, showing how much the true inflation is. The true inflation, in comparison to the earnings, true inflation has gone up by almost 600%, but salaries have only gone up by 200%.
Wow.
So that basically means that the person that
gap.
could, the middle class income could actually buy you a house and get you a car, and you still have something left in 2003. Today you are 15,000 rands in the red.
In the red,
You are 15,000 rand literally in the red. So financial literacy. Financial literacy is about the intelligence of how money works, of what 1 rand can buy and what it cannot buy.
The purpose of money as well.
And the purpose of money as well. That it isn't just about living, but you have to also be able to save and be able to invest and think about long terms and all that stuff.
Yes.
But that discussion has got to be, it's going to be rid of the ideologies.
Okay.
What are some of those ideologies? The ideologies about a man is a provider and a protector, and then he must break his back.
He mustn't care about
to make
anything
sure
else.
that his family has the money.
Nothing else.
But the thing is that if there is no money that is available for the kind of living standard that we have at the moment, what are we supposed to do?
What are we supposed to do?
And if you're highly intelligent, let's say as a woman, you're highly intelligent, capable, and able to earn more money with more opportunities because of those who have fought for those rights, why would you not want to then contribute in partnership in the process of ensuring that your child has the best upbringing as it is possible? So we gotta speak about the actual practical elements, but the actual components of complexity and what those translate into literally in terms of the upbringing of a child.
On a day-to-day.
And remove the egos out of it. So financial literacy has to be part of it. And of course, understanding our financial mindsets as they're influenced by our culture. You know, what kind of relationship do you have, mentally speaking, with money? Emotionally speaking, what's your relationship with money? You know, some people insist that children have to wear branded label stuff. It doesn't matter what. Some people, which is quite funny, would say, I'll never buy my children's clothes on sale. Like, why? What is that about? what's the purpose of buying your kids? To dress them up or for them to look a certain way?
Or to feel a certain way.
To feel a certain way. And the things that are tackling your own mindsets around finances, understanding the emotional attachments, understanding poverty trauma that has attached itself and affected the way that you relate and perceive money, or if you come from a lot of money, where for you perhaps money is more an abundant thing and it's not an element of lack, and you make decisions based on the fact that you can afford, not that you can't afford, all of those things. And I think for me, it's crucial, because that was the last point that I was going to say when the previous question, the fifth skill is exactly about that. It's about financial literacy. Financial literacy.
Because you can impart that into the child. Togo was talking with me the other day that teaching your kids financial literacy early in life is very important, because then it's not about spending, but it's also about building a portfolio of assets. I always say to my two daughters is that even if you're going to get married or live with a man, but don't relinquish or surrender all your assets to that man, because he may sell them and then dump you tomorrow, and then you start from scratch again. So maintain some kind of independence. But financial literacy is very important, because your relationship with money, as you say, it's not just about covering the bills and spending, but it's also about what can I do? What can I use today's rand to build more income tomorrow?
How do you make money work?
How do you make?
I'm teaching my kids how money works. I tell them, okay, Fridays, if we have the means, we will have those takeaways. Only on Fridays, all right? Any time of the day, if you decide, of the week, if you decide we're going to go, I'm like, no, but remember what we agreed. This is the plan. I have a budget for my kids in terms of the amount of money I spend on shoes and on their clothes. My son is a bit older now, and the other ones are now 14, and now into all these Air Jordans. I'm like, dudes, I'm not spending 2,500 rand for your shoes. I don't spend that much money for myself.
Give it on yourself.
This is your budget. Those ones that are going to boarding school, I send you money every month. You don't have to blow all the money. If you save the money at the end of December, you'll have more money to buy yourself Air Jordans. They thought I was kidding.
Okay.
And I wasn't kidding. And then my eldest son got the message. And then last year, dude was asking daddy, well, I didn't blow all my money, so can I go buy my Jordans? I'm like, sure. Now that you've saved the money, go buy, top up. Here's my budget for you, top up. And teaching them to know that just because I have the money doesn't mean that it's for them to use. It's not yours, it's my money. I've got plans with it. And at the very same time, you're not entitled to it. And if you're going to get anything from anybody, it's important to understand that sometimes you've got to work for it. And I think that's crucial.
And earn it.
And earn it. And that's the question. Are we teaching our kids the importance of earning your keep, of contributing your bit in society? Are we teaching them how to work hard and go after what they want themselves?
Are they living on handouts?
Or do they feel like, you know what? I'm just lovable. It's so funny. This other lady yesterday, she's like, you know what? I realized that my parents loved me so much and I was so amazing with them. I thought when I got out there, everybody will think I'm amazing. And then I met this guy and then he rubs at my heart.
Wow.
And I was like, you see, and that's the thing that I've observed in a lot of my counseling is that you raise kids being corseted with the impression that everybody is as trustworthy as you are. And you create a world where they think that the world has to make way and space for them, as opposed for them to learn how to create space for themselves by negotiating with other people in the environment, the terms that are good for them, but also are not harmful to the others. Are we teaching our kids to negotiate that? I gave my kids the other day they asked me for money to go buy these lollipops, but they were working with a friend. And I gave them the money, and I said to them, go get yourselves lollipops. They come back, they bought themselves 2 lollipops, they didn't buy their friends. I cooked them.
Seriously?
I cooked them.
And the reason for that was why didn't
they just didn't think about it. I'm like, why did you not? What makes you think it's okay for you to walk with your friend by yourself lollipops and not get your friend?
And do they have enough cash for that?
They had enough cash.
So they just didn't think about it.
Just didn't think about it.
That's interesting.
And the thing is that even if you've taught them some things you have to keep on drilling it into their heads until it becomes part and parcel of the way that they think. And I believe that it is our responsibility to ensure that the most important lessons for our kids, we repeat them until such time that it is fully integrated into consciousness. It's something that they begin to embrace for themselves. But to go back to your point earlier on, but we need to explain some of the principles. And the question I always say to parents, before you rebuke your child, ask yourself this question: what is the lesson that you want them to teach, and why is that lesson important? Let the answers to that question lead the way that you speak to a child.
Yeah,
Because then it
and
won't be
stick
just,
with it.
it won't be just, stop doing this thing because it's disrespectful. You know, like what is disrespect? Why is it important to respect other people in a common mutual space?
Yeah.
You know, those conversations are crucial.
One lady reached out to our network, and she lives with her husband. She's married, and they've been happily married for 19 years or 18 years now. But she said to me, can I ask my husband to join your network? And I said, but we are all about single dads. And then she said, well, I'd like him to join your network because she's an absent father. And I said, well, tell me a little bit more. And she said, well, he's there, he provides, he sleeps at the house all the time, but he knows nothing about our kids. And I'm hoping he can learn something, one or two things from the network. And I began to drill a bit deeper. So they both work, they've got professions like you and I. But when he goes home, he will provide financially and otherwise, obviously, a roof over their head, clothes on their back. But he's got no meaningful relationship with the kids. And I'm beginning to think our network also is for dads that are living in those kinds of homes. But how can we use this community to even help those kinds of dads realize that just by providing shelter, finances, and clothes isn't enough, and help them form? Because I was stuck. I thought, and by the way, she follows our social media handles everywhere, and I began to try and understand why is she so much curious about what we do. But the question is to you, how can a community like this reach out for those kinds of families where there's stability, but the dad does not have a relationship with the kids?
I think it's a challenge to you. It's a challenge to me to think about expanding to meaningful fatherhood.
I think we should do that.
Not just single dads.
Not just single
dads.
dads.
And I'm all in for that kind of idea.
Well, you're a married dad, but I'm thinking, as you're talking, but we should think about that.
I think it's something that we have to incorporate, because ultimately that's what it's about. We're talking parenting.
So it's possible to have a husband who's an absent father.
Oh, there are many.
Is it?
There are many, and it's not so much that they're absent. I think it's important for us to not judge it per se. People do what they know. And if they've seen their fathers and whoever else do that, and they feel that the responsibility of me as a father is to provide, to protect, and to do all of that, and I don't have to be emotionally available, that's the role of a mother. It is for both couples to renegotiate those terms. And to understand what that involves. And let's be very honest and be very fair. A lot of mothers don't know how to let the fathers be part of their children's lives.
They think it's inherent in the fathers to know what to do.
No, let me repeat that again. A lot of mothers don't know how to let fathers be meaningfully part of their children's lives. When they rebuke the child, mother criticizes how the father parents the child.
Okay.
You know, when they ask certain questions about parent, I've seen that happen quite a lot, where it's like, I just want to shield my kids from all the danger. You want to expose them because you're dangerous. Talk about this whole toxic masculinity thing that's a talk out there.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to teach your kids, your boys, to burn that productive energy that is so much in them, otherwise they start breaking stuff in the house, and it's like, oh, you know, but why? This is dangerous, you know. And then the child is being protected and has got much layers and layers and layers over them. And then you're thinking, but he needs to understand that life is hard out there. Life is hard. And then you will tackle it.
I want to say this to the people watching and listening to us. We are only getting warmed up and we are out of time. But I want Jabu and other fathers out there to come back as part of season 4 to explore this notion further around meaningful fatherhood. How this network can help those of you watching be better dads wherever you may be. And again, go to our handles, go to dadconnections.org, follow our socials, and give us feedback, and we appreciate your questions. My friend, I need to thank you at this time, and thanks so much for coming up.
Cool.
We'll
It was
talk
great.
again.
Thanks for having me.
I like that. There's a lot to talk to you about.
Come on now.
Thanks, mate.
The